There's only two types of photographers that have the ability and the luck to be successful in this industry. There's type A and type B. And I guess also everyone else who's also successful. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, welcome back. My name is Sergio and I'm a commercial photographer here in Victoria, BC. I've been shooting a little over 10 years now, and I just had this one recent shoot with another artist that really made me explore this concept of type A versus type B photographers and how there really is a perfect balance that can exist between the two, which I think really makes for the most successful photographers. So by the end of the video, I want to equip you with the knowledge that I've gathered between the two types of photographers and why I think the mesh of the two is actually what's going to make you a really successful photographer. So to start, let's just boil down what really makes a type A photographer. A type A photographer will be highly competitive and will be very organized at reaching their goals and setting themselves a clear path to success. How you can benefit as a type A photographer, or what you can pull from type A photographers if that's not really who you are, is that ability to really schedule and maintain a rigid workflow as photographers. There's a lot of uncertainty in this game, and having a little bit of rigidity in your workflow is actually going to help you move forward as a photographer. It's going to give you a little bit of those bumpers like when you're bowling. Alternatively to that, the type B photographer is going to be a whole lot more adaptable when there's flexibility in the scheduling. When anything involves a little bit of troubleshooting or some creative thinking, type B photographers tend to really excel because they'll be much less self-involved in their process. The experience is a lot more worth it than the end goal. And I think with type A photographers, that end goal is so much more important than the actual experience or getting through it or getting to it. So as photographers, the long game of being a photographer is enjoying that process. So if you can pull a little bit of that from a type B photographer, or if you lean into that part of your personality, you're going to be a better photographer from it. As type B photographers, you're less likely to have things affect you and have minor little things, little hiccups really affect that final image or that final product. As a type A photographer, you might be more hung up on those little things, but that also might mean that you're just going to pick up those tiny little details and you'll be able to be maybe a little bit more analytical with your end product. It's not that there is a right or wrong, that you have to be 100% type A or 100% type B. I really think that that mesh of the two is really what's going to help you be a better photographer. Type A photographers tend to be a little bit more reserved when it comes to interacting with people and to having this one-on-one and growing their network and just being fun people to hang out with. Sometimes that comes a little bit less second nature to them, whereas someone who's a little bit more type B as a photographer will have much more of that flexibility because they're not as attached to their own thoughts or things that they might say, because they're much more into the whole experience rather than how they look at the end of it. This lack of order and structure may also lead to more procrastination, which is definitely not a strong suit for any career path, much less as photographers. Things often pile up really quickly, and it's definitely important to stay on this rigid schedule, or at least a slightly rigid schedule, in order to be on top of your workflow. I know that there's no deadline or rules on how quickly you need to return pictures to a client, let's say, but a type A photographer will most likely give back those images or give back those final product quicker than a type B photographer who's just procrastinating and putting it off until maybe they get an email and it's like, hey, where's my stuff? It's not that you can't do the work. It's just there's a lot of things that are going on in your head that tend to get in the way of that. The ability to be flexible and to be adaptable with everything that comes also means that there's probably a lot less rigidity in your schedule, and you're more likely to push things off if they're not what you feel like doing, or they're not, they're not in the mood for you today. As a type A photographer, because you're so into that goal or that end result, and what you're really striving for is just being done with the project rather than doing the project, you're much more likely to not enjoy this delayed gratification that comes with this photography job. So if you can pull a little bit more from type B in this scenario and have a little bit more of that understanding that Rome wasn't built in a day, and that you have to take these micro steps every single day to reach this long goal, or this goal that's far ahead of you, and you enjoy that process throughout rather than just trying to enjoy winning once you've won. Because that is so fleeting, and it's so, once you get to that goal that you've set for yourself, and as type B people or type B photographers, you might have a harder time setting goals. I know I sure did. But by setting those goals and finally reaching them, you realize that once you've reached them, it's like, oh, I need another one. I need to keep going. So if you're always focused on just that end result and just the goal, you're going to realize that as soon as you get there, you need another one, you need another one, you need another one, and you're never that happy. You're not enjoying this process of photography. You're just trying to get to these milestones, and that's not going to be beneficial for your career. Being a mesh of type A and type B photographers, let's say type C for cool photographer, that's how you're really going to be the best photographer in your area. It's working on a little bit of what makes you a great business and a great person to interact with, and having a huge network around you, and also being the little analytical nerd who spends all of his time Googling how to do certain lights and then trying it out and then trying a new setup on this and then trying out new technique for composition or for whatever. Being a mixture of that super analytical approach and that super freeform frat boy approach, being that type cool photographer is how you're going to excel and be a lot more happy as a photographer in the coming years. I hope you guys like this video. It's a little bit different than usual. Maybe subscribe if you learned something new and like it on your way out. And I'll see you guys in a couple days. Later. There's only two types of success.